Hi, welcome to the Scribe Studio. My name is Mark Walker, and this is Josh Solomon.
How you doing, Mark?
I'm doing well, Josh. How are you?
Good, good.
All right. Well, thanks for coming in again to help us out. Recently, we had another release of Scribe Online. In that release, we're featuring some new improvements to our debug feature. So Josh and I thought it would be a nice idea to teach people a little bit about the debug feature and show off some of the new features. So let's start off, Josh, by just talking about what the debug feature is and what it lets you do, generally speaking.
Well, the debug feature allows you to run a map and step through each of the blocks and view the data as it's coming through, and view each one of the fields and see what kind of data you're getting back from your source,
Okay.
as well as seeing how that data is transformed via your formulas and being sent off to your target.
So it's actually writing data to your target.
It is.
Okay,
It is.
so that's one thing we should point out that's different with Debug and Scribe Online to customers or users who are used to using Scribe Insight, which has a, what do we call it there, a test run feature, where that is not actually writing data to the target.
Right. We're actually, when you're debugging through a control, through some control blocks here, you're writing data to your target.
Okay.
So, and we show you what that data looks like.
All right. And so what was the reason behind making all these new features that we added in the latest release to Debug? What was it about the old version of Debug that we wanted to change?
Well, the old version was very slim, and you had to step through each individual block and hit next each time. And that, in addition to being repetitive, was very slow because the screen had to refresh after each one of the round trips up to the cloud to get the data
out to the agent,
back.
to make the change, to go back to the cloud, and then back to refresh your browser.
Exactly.
And so what did we do to change that with this new release?
Well, what we've done is we've added breakpoints. And anyone who's familiar with development in any type of an IDE situation, such as Visual Studio, will be familiar with what breakpoints do. You can actually set a point in the map that you want to break on. And so the rest of the data will just get automatically processed, and it will stop exactly where you intend for it to stop. So it allows you to make use of the error messages that you get that tell you that on, the insert of this contact, which is, step down here, block way down here, your error occurred. So instead of having to step through it, you can get right to it.
Okay. Well, why don't you give us a little tour of Debug so people can get a look at how it works?
All right, so let's drill into a map that has several control blocks in it, or blocks in general. And what we have here is our activities map for our Marketo to CRM system. Okay. And typically, or in the past, you would come over to Debug and you would hit your Start button, and you would simply step through every single control block that came through here. And you see our arrow has come up here, and we're waiting for the first set of data to come back from the query.
So every block, and you really had no control over when it was going to start and stop. It just went to every single block and stopped each time.
Exactly. Okay. And what happened was you hit the Start button, and then you simply had to continue to hit Next each time. Whereas here, we hit the Start button, and once the data is loaded up and ready to go, our Start button turns into a Continue button. Okay. So you still have the option to step through every single block here as you're working through, but you also have the option to right-click on a block and create a breakpoint. Okay. And when you do that, we mark it with a little red dot. And again, if you're familiar with Visual Studio and debugging in there, that's exactly what you'll see there. Okay. So now I can actually, instead of stepping through every single block, I know that my error is down here somewhere, so I'm going to hit the Continue button, and it will actually process all of that data and go right to the spot where I'm interested in.
Exactly.
So, and as we do that, you can see that it will process through all of that information and all of the current results that are available from all of the blocks that are in context are available for us to take a look at.
So you said context. One of the terms that we use at Scribe to talk about context is the scope, right? So scope and context means any block that was previous to the block that you're on right now could have had some inputs and some results, and you have access to those here on this tab.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we actually have an All Results tab as well that we can step through. And this actually shows you all of the results, even if they're not immediately in context.
Okay.
Or in scope.
Yeah.
Additionally, you don't actually have to set a breakpoint in order to process through some records. If you chose, you could actually toggle that breakpoint off.
Okay.
And let this process run until an error occurs. So if you're looking through a set of data, say 15, 20 rows, and you know that somewhere in there, row 10, there's an error, you can actually tell this process to run until it finds an error. So we'll actually run through every row until it comes to an error.
The default setting here when you came in was that that checkbox was checked. The break on record error was checked.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. That's that.
Now, was there something that I was going to ask? Is there something we did around conditional breakpoints?
Yes, we can actually set those breakpoints, set conditions on those breakpoints. So I'll reset this breakpoint here, and when I do that, I have an option to edit a breakpoint.
Okay.
And I can edit this breakpoint, and I can conditionally break. So in addition to processing through all of the rows until any error occurs, I can actually process to row 25 because I know that somewhere around there my contact ID or my lead ID is going to equal a particular value. So I can actually set a value so that I don't break at all until I reach a particular condition.
Oh, so process until this source value equals this.
Exactly.
Right.
And one other item that we've laid in here is, actually there's two items. First off, you can break at this point based on a condition of anything that's in scope.
Okay.
So you can see the previous steps are in here. Yeah. And one more thing is we added a hit count. So you can actually determine, I want to take a look at what the data looks like after row 500.
So process until I get to row 500 and then hit this breakpoint. Okay.
So that's our conditional breakpoints.
Okay. Are there, could you explain what some of these other tabs are all about down at the bottom there?
Absolutely. If any errors had occurred within this this record, as we're processing this particular record, these errors would show up here so that you can actually take a look at them. We have a breakdown of all of our breakpoints in this particular map, so I can actually add multiple breakpoints, and as I do that, they all show up here. And the number of times that particular control block or source block, data block has been hit will be shown up here. So, you know, if you've got some loops and some ifs, you know, you may have different hit counts.
Okay.
And you can also edit all your breakpoints from up here.
Oh, so you can edit by right-clicking right there, but also by right-clicking on the breakpoint that's over on the left-hand side.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And finally, we have a new tab. What we've done is we've added the reprocess records feature into the debug. So anyone who's familiar with having reprocessing records within a Scribe map knows that you can go into the list of errors and choose records to reprocess.
Right.
And when you do that, it simply runs the map. Here, we're allowing you to choose those previously errored records and run them one at a time in your debug mode.
Excellent. Now, there's one other feature that I think we might have left off, which was the how you can change a value as the debug is running. Could you show us that, please?
Absolutely.
Because I think that's a pretty neat feature.
Yes, this one is kind of exciting because if you're working with a map, you have no way of troubleshooting and fixing an error row. So if you know that you can, if you know what the values are, so here I know that my very next step is, or my next control block is going to fail, and I can see up here that it's going to fail because this ID is wrong. So what I can do is I can double click into this field and I can change that ID to the correct value
needs to be.
For debug purposes only, and test by saying next or continue, and I can see if that error shows up.
So depending on whether the block that came from was your source query, or so you could be actually kind of in effect changing the data that came from the source, or that value could be something that was set by a block that did an operation against your target, and that was what we call the backfill.
Right.
Right, because we get a what we call backfill for everything we do against a target. We can see any of the values that were set in the target. So you could alter that value that was set in a previous step.
Here you can see all of the items that are in scope, and you can change any value that's in scope that is pertinent to the very next block. So in this case, we'll scroll down here. The input for the update insert, which is the next operation that's going to take place. So any value up here that's pertinent to that input, that's part of those values can be edited, and you can change the time that's going in, etc.
Great. So, I think we've covered most of the new things that we put in and done a nice overview. Is there anything you can think of that we left out of this?
No, I think that's good.
Terrific. Well, thank you very much for spending some time with us in the Scribe Studio, and we hope you come back another time to get some more tips and tricks from our Scribe experts.